Have you ever felt an inexplicable pull toward an era you've never studied or a culture you've never visited, as if something buried in your psyche is reaching out through time? Maybe you walked into a centuries-old building and experienced an uncanny familiarity, or you met someone new and instantly sensed a connection that transcended the normal bonds of conversation. Many dismiss these flashes of recognition as coincidences, quirks of memory, or wild imagination. Yet in various esoteric teachings, they're considered evidence that your personal story may be far older and more expansive than the single lifetime you consciously recall. According to these perspectives, the essence we call soul weaves through multiple incarnations, carrying lessons, karmic TIs, and hidden memories that occasionally bleed into our present awareness. Still, if reincarnation is valid, why do most of us start life with no recollection of who we once were? Esoteric thinkers offer a striking explanation. A veil of forgetfulness gently descends as you begin each incarnation, shielding you from overwhelming data that could interfere with your new tasks and relationships. Imagine coping with the heartbreaks, regrets, or triumphs of many lifetimes all at once. Your mind would be flooded with a weight that could hinder present growth. By mostly forgetting, you receive the gift of a fresh start, honing in on the challenges and themes specific to this life. Yet the idea of forgetting doesn't imply that prior lifetimes have vanished. The broad strokes of those experiences remain etched in a deeper layer of consciousness. That's why certain individuals who undertake regressions or meditative journeys sometimes uncover entire narratives, complete with vivid emotions and historical details, surfacing from an inner reservoir that defies the boundaries of their current life. It's no wonder that modern Western culture resists talk of reincarnation. Our science-based worldview rarely accommodates phenomena that can't be tested in a laboratory. Yet stories abound. Children naming villages or describing events they've never encountered, or adults spontaneously speaking archaic languages in a trance. Mainstream investigators propose cryptomnesia or some obscure neural glitch. Meanwhile, esoteric schools respond that these episodes confirm humanity's infinite nature. For them, we are spiritual beings journeying through multiple lifetimes, with each incarnation adding new threads to the tapestry of our evolving soul. If so, the question becomes how we might retrieve a portion of that tapestry, and what purpose it could serve to mesh earlier chapters with the demands of our current life. One popular route for exploring older incarnations is meditative regression, often undertaken solo or with a specialized guide. You quiet your body and mind, typically by focusing on steady breathing or a soft mental countdown, then envision yourself descending steps or passing through a doorway marked past lives on the far side. You allow mental images, sensations, and impressions to unfold. Perhaps you see yourself in attire from a distant century, sense a name that isn't yours, or feel an inexplicable wave of longing or fear. The theory is that in this relaxed state, the usual mental barriers dissolve, letting your subconscious slip glimpses of memories stored outside your present identity. Repeated sessions can yield consistent imagery, maybe the same land or recurring historical periods, lending credence to the notion that you're accessing actual fragments of an older self rather than just spinning daydreams. Yet any single session should be met with a balance of curiosity and caution. Illusions can arise, and not all impressions are guaranteed to reflect genuine events. Another accessible method relies on dreams. In many esoteric traditions, dreams act like bridges linking your conscious mind and a subtler realm. Set an intention before sleeping. I welcome beneficial insights from my broader soul history, and keep a notepad close. Upon waking, record every trace of your dream quickly, including emotional currents or fleeting visuals you can't fully explain. Night after night, patterns may emerge, such as consistent references to a specific historical environment, or a recurring role like you keep being a healer, a warrior, or someone in royal garments. Even if you're unsure whether to interpret these as literal recollections, noticing repeated motifs can bring a deeper sense of continuity. Some dreamers even see unfamiliar architecture or landscapes that they later verify actually exist, fueling the theory that their subconscious is tapping into an older memory bank, rather than simple fancy, while regression and dreamwork are the two common methods. Your physical body can also be an unexpected portal to potential past life knowledge. Certain esoteric viewpoints maintain that birthmarks or unexplained chronic pains can point to injuries or traumas once sustained in a previous life. Dr. Ian Stevenson's decades-long research documented cases of children who described earlier incarnations in detail, whose present bodies bore marks akin to the fatal wounds of their purported prior persona. Mainstream science remains skeptical, attributing such coincidences to the random distribution of birthmarks. But from an esoteric vantage, these stories can become compelling evidence that the soul's experiences imprint themselves physically across incarnations. Even if you don't have birthmarks that match old scars, you might notice persistent tension or recurring pain that defies logical cause, prompting you to wonder if it's more than a psychological quirk. A recommended approach is to lie down and shift your awareness through each part of your body. If you feel an odd ache in your left shoulder, ask silently, could this be residual from another lifetime? Let images or emotions spontaneously arise without forcing them. If they keep pointing to a medieval battlefield or a harrowing fall from a horse, you may decide to reflect on how that story resonates with your present challenges. Another path of exploration revolves around unexplainable talents, fears, or fascinations. Imagine picking up a foreign language, only to realize you speak it with unusual fluidity, far beyond your formal study. Or think about the deep fear of drowning despite never having had a water-related trauma in this life. Esoteric teachings interpret these phenomena as karmic echoes. Skills perfected in prior roles can reappear when conditions are right, while an unresolved catastrophe might manifest as an inexplicable phobia. Some people chase these leads by systematically experimenting with hobbies or cultural traditions that tug at their intuition, curious to see if a sense of coming home emerges. Documenting these experiments in a journal tracking any déjà vu or emotional surges can reveal surprising patterns. Perhaps you've always gravitated toward Spanish architecture, felt goosebumps hearing traditional flamenco, and found that certain Spanish phrases come oddly naturally. You might tentatively wonder if your older identity was once rooted in that place and time. There's also the phenomenon of déjà vu or synchronicity, which many esoteric circles view as glimpses of your multidimensional existence. You may step into a random bookstore in a foreign city and feel a shock of familiarity. Or you bump into a stranger, and within moments, you sense a bond that defies rational explanation. Skeptics interpret déjà vu as a simple glitch in memory processing. Yet those with an esoteric mindset suspect you may be momentarily overlapping with a prior timeline. It's as though your soul recognizes the place or the person from another chapter. Keeping a brief record of these events can help you connect the dots. If you chronicle repeated experiences of unshakable recognition, always in settings reminiscent of a certain historical style, you might surmise a consistent link to an earlier life context. One factor that can reinforce or weaken your confidence in these revelations is the presence or absence of verifiable details. Occasionally, individuals recall obscure historical facts or the names of small towns they claim never to have studied. If research confirms such details are accurate, it nudges the experience out of the realm of mere fantasy. Nonetheless, it's rare to find extensive external validation. In many cases, the purpose of the recollection is not to prove anything academically, but to catalyze personal healing and growth. If reflecting on a potential older life lifts a crippling phobia or illuminates a destructive relationship pattern, that might be reason enough to value the memory, regardless of outside consensus. Also integral to the esoteric lens is the concept of karma, an energetic cause and effect that spans lifetimes. Suppose in a past existence, you betrayed a close friend. The karma might resurface in your current life as a difficulty forming trust, or perhaps you keep meeting people who betray you. The unlearned lesson is now reversed, pushing you to cultivate loyalty or compassion to balance that karmic debt. So, exploring past life recall can be a systematic method to identify which karmic loops remain active. Realizing you had a pattern of, say, greed or cruelty might spur you to lead a more generous or kind existence now, effectively breaking that karmic cycle. Hence, these recollections aren't about dwelling on ancient history for curiosity's sake. They're practical tools for present-day transformation. If you decide to investigate these realms, a step-by-step daily meditation can be beneficial. You might begin each morning or evening with a short relaxation, setting an intention like, I open myself to any beneficial insight from my soul's fuller journey. Then quietly watch your inner images for a few minutes. If you do this consistently, you may note subtle visions or emotional impressions, perhaps a fleeting sense of wearing clothing from another culture, or intense sadness linked to a scene of an abandoned child, or a flash of being on a ship in rough seas. Don't force a story. Just collect these puzzle pieces. Over weeks or months, you might notice that certain puzzle pieces start forming a coherent scenario, allowing you to glean lessons such as the importance of loyalty, the need to overcome fear, or the acceptance of heartbreak as a soul-level teacher. Another approach is dream reentry. If a dream strongly hints at an older era or identity, you can reimagine that dream in a relaxed state later in the day, seeing if additional details emerge. It's worth emphasizing that caution is warranted. The esoteric path can be enthralling, but some who embark on it become fixated on glorious fantasies, believing themselves to have been Cleopatra or Genghis Khan. The reality, from a deeper vantage, is that all souls might have experienced every sort of role. Not everyone was a legendary figure. Sometimes we lived as farmers, scribes, or anonymous healers. If your meditations repeatedly paint you as a medieval soldier, that's no less meaningful than if you discover you were a famed queen. The core value is how it prompts you to shift your current attitudes or behaviors. Did you gain empathy from the prior role? Do you sense guilt you need to resolve? Are you drawn to particular spiritual practices because of earlier involvement with them? Occasionally, you might face glimpses of trauma, like violent scenes or heartbreak from a prior life, which can spark distress. Should that happen, ground yourself. You're safe in the present. If strong emotional turbulence persists, consider working with a therapist, preferably someone who respects esoteric or transpersonal viewpoints, who can help you integrate these recollections without re-traumatizing yourself. Ultimately, these memory dives aim to enrich and empower your life now, not weigh it down with sorrow or regret. Realizing that you too have caused harm or suffered injustice in other times can build your compassion, forging an outlook that sees each living being as engaged in their own karmic healing. The concept of soul groups also resonates with many who research older incarnations. According to this notion, we reincarnate in clusters, returning with many of the same souls repeatedly in new roles. Perhaps that manipulative coworker once was your sibling in a prior era, and you're both now tackling reversed roles to extract new lessons. If taken with honesty and humility, these revelations can significantly soften tensions. You see that you're cosmic classmates, cycling through shared scripts until the friction is resolved. The more you adopt this viewpoint, the more your relationships transform into spiritual partnerships, each conflict a clue about your karmic to-do list. As your perspective shifts, fear of mortality also tends to diminish. If your being transcends a single life, then physical death is less final. Yes, you'll still treasure your relationships and achievements in this incarnation, but you no longer see them as your entire existence. This can bring a calm steadiness to how you engage with daily stressors. You might ask yourself, is this argument or career meltdown as huge as it seems? Or is it just another scene in my extended cosmic schooling? The esoteric approach doesn't trivialize real-world responsibilities, but it gives them context that can reduce anxiety and fuel more purposeful action. At the same time, your curiosity about older identities should never overshadow the possibility that your truest power lies in the present. Dwelling too long on past glories or injustices might stall your growth. The overall point, from an esoteric vantage, is to glean wisdom that corrects your present trajectory. If regression or dream exploration yields tangible insights like an irrational fear that now you can systematically address, then you've harnessed the best that past life recall can offer. If those meditations or dreams repeatedly show you are a solitary scholar in an ancient temple, maybe that explains why you're drawn to reclusive spiritual study now. Yet you remain free to choose your next steps without being bound by that previous narrative. In closing, the phrase, "You forgot your past lives?" This is how to remember, need not be interpreted as an empty promise. Indeed, you can reclaim glimpses of who you once were, using accessible practices, guided meditative regression, dream journaling, introspective bodily awareness, or simply noticing the subtle call of certain historical contexts. The excitement lies not in collecting past life stories, but in seeing how they might bring deeper clarity, healing, and direction to your current existence. Though modern science might debate the authenticity of these recollections, from an esoteric viewpoint, even symbolic or partial impressions can reflect genuine karmic patterns seeking resolution. When approached thoughtfully, remembering can reorient you to a broader cosmic identity, one that dissolves the finality of death and fosters an ethos of compassion, knowing we've all worn many roles across the tapestry of time. So if the notion of older lifetimes resonates, consider these steps as an invitation, not a dogma. Keep your mind open but grounded, letting each recollection or sign speak softly to your heart. With every meditation, dream, or sync, you might feel a quiet recognition stirring, validating that your soul's path extends beyond a single birth certificate or obituary. Ultimately, acknowledging the vast continuum of your existence can make this present lifetime shine with renewed purpose. Embrace that possibility, glean your old lessons, and weave them into a life brimming with wisdom, empathy, and a gentle assurance that you are more than you can ever remember in one fleeting incarnation.